All right, good evening. The Hanukkah fair is escalated. First of all, just saying, last night we had latkes. Tonight we've got latkes and sufganiyot, and a bonus with the gelt, right? Mm-hmm. And so, wow, okay. So,
and it's still Tuesday.
That's right. Oh, and it's still Tuesday. That's correct. Imagine what's happening. It's a good thing we're not having Shiur on Thursday, or else we'd explode. There you go. Perfect. Everybody now sees. So, Daf Yomi for our week is sponsored by Reb Aaron and Evelyn Kislas B'schus Refuah Shlema for Reb Aaron's mother, Gracia Bat Misoda. And tonight's latkes are sponsored by Jeffrey and Chava Bela Wall, Lilu Nishmas Jeff's grandmother, Mrs. Leah Eisner, Leah Bas Yisrael Levi, who made the best latkes this side of the Danube River.
True.
The Danube.
It's a fact.
All right, if you go to home.
That's in Hungary. These are hers. These are her latkes.
That's amazing. Yeah. Wow. Very good. Finely ground latkes, right? There's different styles.
Yeah.
These are finely ground.
That was the style.
That is the style.
Back in Hungary. Before the war.
Budapest. There we go. All right.
Beautiful.
Chatas ha'of kodemes. We said we were doing which korban comes before which. The chata bird comes before the ola bird. Mino hanimili. Where do we know that from? The Tanur Rabbanan and our rabbis. V'kriv es asher lechatas rishona. The pasuk says you're supposed to bring. This is by the pasuk which talking about somebody who has to bring two birds. Two bnei Yonah or two Torim, right? Whichever one they're bringing of the two birds. So you have to bring the first one. You bring the first one, Rishona, as a chatos. V'kiva sher chatos Rishona. Mat Talmud lomar. So what is it telling us? She'ein Talmud lomar lelome cheti karev Rishona. That's not just simply telling me that you're supposed to bring the chatos first, because Harei Kvar Namar already says in the pasuk afterwards, on pasuk and pasuk Yud, which is 2 pasakim later, Ves Hasheni Yaseh Ola. The second one's an Ola, so I can already figure out if the second one's an Ola, the first one's the Chatos. Ella Ze Bona'av. The reason why it's repeated is because this is now telling us a generality, a rule. Lekol Chatos Sheyikdemu Leola Habois Imohen. That this is the rule that all the times that you've got a Chatos and an Ola that are brought together, you always go with the Chatos first. Bein Chatos Ha'of. Le'ola sa'of, it doesn't matter whether you're dealing with a chatos bird, with an ola bird, ubein chatos behema, le'olas behema, or if you've got a circumstance where you've got a chatos behema, and you've got a chatos animal and an ola animal, and we know that that's only true as far as the sprinkling of the blood, the throwing of the blood, is true because as far as the burning of the meat, the ola has precedence. Va'afilu chatos ha'of, le'olas behema. Now we're going to go one step further. Not only that, but it trumps the rule that we said that animals come before birds. If you've got a bird that's a chatos and an ola that's a behema, that's a bird, you're going to bring the chatos bird first. Okay, so that's a hilkach. Therefore, chatos ha'of le'olas ha'of may ve'es ha'sheni chatos behema le'olas behema mid'Rabbi Rachmana. So therefore, what we're saying is, you have all these different drashos here. We know that the chatos of a bird comes before the ola of a bird from the fact that it says es hasheni, the second one is the ola. So that's how we know that. Then from the fact that we've got an extra drasha, as we said, it's kind of the summary line, then we said, since the first one is the chatos, that comes to tell me that that's a universal rule, universal principle. The chatos always comes first, regardless of the other rule that we had, which is animals are higher than birds. Chatos is higher than ola, period. Always overruling priority. Okay, Toshma, come and listen. Rabbi Eliezer says, Kol makom shenischalfa chatos. Anytime that you have a circumstance that you can exchange a chatos and bring two birds instead, one as a chatos and one as an ola, when would we do that? We would do that in the variable offering, right? You've got one chatos variable offering that you can either bring as an animal if you're wealthy. If you're not quite wealthy enough, then you're going to exchange that animal for two birds. And then there's a third level, which is to reduce down to flour. So, for a mincha, right? So whenever you're going to have a animal offering, which is now changed into two birds, the chatos comes first. right? V'kan ola kodemes, right? And because the main korban, why is that? The main korban is the chatos, right? That's the whole reason you're doing it. And the ola only comes because it's an exchange, right? So, and now when it comes to a yoledes, when it comes to a woman who gives birth, let's see, we keep that shenis.
Gives birth to a little girl. The yoledes means little girl, right?
So a yoledes that's a yalda, right? A yoledes is a woman who gives birth, right? She is a yoledes in the present tense. She is one who gives birth. So when we've got a poor lady who gives birth, so she also has variable offering, right? If she is the in that circumstance, ola kodemes, right? The ola should come first. Why? Because the ola is the main offering. If she was going to bring just an animal for giving birth, if she was rich and she's going to bring an animal, then the animal that she would bring would be an ola offering. So therefore, now that she is less rich, so the Torah gives us permission for a woman who gives birth to bring 2 birds instead. Well, what's the main offering? We would presume the main offering is the ola. Okay, so therefore, even though the general rule we're suggesting here, the Gemara is asking this question because we just had the rule that the chatas always comes first. This brisa seems to be telling me, well, not really necessarily. It kind of depends. There's a circumstance by a yoledes where the ola bird should come first, right? So kol makom sheba al chet, if the 2 birds are coming because of an avera that you've done, so chatos kodemes, then the chatos comes first, v'kan ola kodemes, right? But here, right, since her chatos is not coming for a sin offering, she's not bringing this as a sin because she gave birth. There's no sin she's doing, right? Even though there's right with the Rashi there that brings that she has all kinds of negative things to say about her husband when she's giving birth, and that's potentially where the chatos comes in. Really, there's no need. She didn't do an avera. She's bringing a chatos. We have this sort of a circumstance. We had this yesterday by the Levium that they were bringing a korban chatos despite the fact that there was no chet. Right? It's not really a chatos per se. It's a chatos which is similar to an ola in that it's a chatos offering that doesn't come for an avera. Right? What is that? Yeah? So that's an interesting sort of a circumstance. Right? There's some kind of, we bring on Rosh Chodesh, a chatos for Hashem, right? There's no real avera, although the Gemara went out of its way to explain that he made the moon smaller, and he had an atonement kaviyachol for that, right? So, nevertheless, it's kind of an interesting phenomenon, right? We have such a concept as a chatos, right, where it doesn't come for a chet, therefore the ola bird should come first. But if the 2 birds are coming because of a chatos, so then chatos kodemes, right? So then the chatos comes first. V'kan ola kodemes. So here, right, by a poor lady who is giving birth, so she's supposed to bring the ola. Okay, so therefore, there's our question. So our question is, which is it? Does a chatos always come before an ola, or does it depend? So Amar Rava, so Rava says, Lemikraa hikdima hakasuv. So the Torah is not telling you, right? What's the point of this brisa? The brisa is not telling you that if you have a ola and a chatos in front of you, which korban to bring first, because that's not true. Even in that circumstance, the chatos is still first. Our rule is in fact universal. What's the brisa saying? The brisa is saying that when you read the psukim in the Torah will talk about the ola before the chatos by the lady that gives birth. And it wants to know, why is that? The answer is because there's no real chet here. So therefore it talks about, the pasuk reads appropriately, the ola and the chatos. However, when you're actually doing the korbanos, the chatos still comes first.
That's an interesting read of the brisa, because why would you need a brisa to tell you, like,
why
to tell you about the psukim?
Because I guess the point is that if the brisa didn't tell me that, I would have read the pasuk and I would have taken it literally. The pasuk says ola and then the chatos. So the Brisa goes out of its way to tell me you might have read it that way. However, that's not what's going on here. The Brisa is telling you why the psukim are written that way, despite the fact that the korbanos are not brought that way. And therefore, that's how Rava interprets it. So everything remains consistent. Okay, Toshma. We will try we'll ask another question based on a brisa that we had before. Toshma. Parim kodmin le'elim. The bulls are before rams. Because bulls are, well, I'll say they're bigger, right? We'll explain why. The elim kodmin lekvasim. Rams are before sheep. Rams are bigger, older sheep, right? Kvasim les'irim. Sheep come before goats. So now, my lav dechag. When is it that we have all of these animals to be brought at once? Aren't we talking about at Sukkah's time? So at Sukkah's time, we've got bulls, we've got rams, we've got sheep, we've got goats. So therefore, it's telling us which one comes first. Now, it tells us that the sheep come before the goats. Problem is, the goats are the chatas. So therefore, why is it that the sheep are going to come before the goats? Didn't we learn that the chatas comes before the olah, not the olah comes before the chatas? The sheep shouldn't come before goats. Right? The goats should come before sheep. So the answer is no. That's not what this is talking about. This is linedava. This is telling us that if we have people who are bringing various olos, various animals, all of them are olos. Which animal has priority if they are all olos? Parim kodmin le'elim, bulls come before a ram. Why? Shenisrabu minesachim. Because if you take a look in our trusty list of chumash right back here, it tells us that depending on the animal, there's going to be a different amount of flour and wine and oil that come with it. The larger the animal, the more you're bringing with it. So bulls come before rams because there's 3 sarna of flour and the rams only got 2. And then we'll just, since I'll lose the place if I keep going back and forth, 2 isronos by the ram, only 1 for a sheep, for the lamb, right? And then, I guess a lamb and a kid are in the same sort of a category here we're discussing, but because they have the same. And then it's really the same all the way down. So we're going to wonder, why is it that a goat, why is it that a kid is a goat? Yeah. Right? Kid is a goat. So therefore, why is it the sheep that comes before the goat if they've got the same one? So we'll ask that in a second. However,
so don't insult your kids.
Don't insult your kids, right? Well, they come last. Your kids come last, I guess.
Good luck telling that to your wife.
So, parim kodmin. So okay. So the bulls are before the rams because they've got more of the flour and the oil and the wine, as we just saw. V'chein elim lekvasim. Rams are also likewise before the sheep because they've got more. Kvasim les'irim, and the sheep comes before the goat. Why? Shekim nisrabo be'elia, because when you burn the burned portions that go on the mizbeach, the sheep, you burn the tail on the mizbeach. The goat, the owner gets to eat the tail. Therefore, since the sheep gets burned, more of it gets burned on the mizbeach, it has precedence. Toshma, come and listen. Par kohen Mashiach kohen lepar helem davar shel tzibur. If you have a bull that's a sin offering for the kohen gadol, right? It comes before the bull that comes when Beis Din rules erroneously for the congregation. Par helem davar shel tzibur, the bull for that mistake of the Beis Din, kodem lepar avodas kochavim, that comes before the bull of idolatry. Now we said, where's the bull of idolatry? Because we've talked about a goat of idolatry. The goat is when the tzibur, when the community does idolatry, right? We talked about the goat, that you're going to sprinkle that goat inside. But there's a bull that comes with it. The bull is an olah. The seir is the chatos. So it's telling us here that these chatos offerings come before the par for avodos kochavim, which is an olah. But then it says par avodos kochavim kodem seiri avodos kochavim. The bull of avodos kochavim comes before the goat of avodos kochavim. That should not be. That's the weird, right? Because the olah is coming before the chatos. That's our question again. De'af agav de par avodos kochavim. Ola, even though the bull of avodas kochavim is an ola, seiri avodas kochavim is a chatos, and the goat is the chatos. Why should this be? So now, the ema miresha par helm davar shel tzibur kodem lepar avodas kochavim bechad mina. So What? Why doesn't it say? Why did we ask this question at the end? Why didn't we say from before? The par elam davar, which is a chatos, comes before the bull of avodas kochavim, which is an ola, right? Well, why are you telling me that what's the chiddush here, right? In other words, the fact that you even have to tell me that the bull, there shouldn't even be a reason for you to be writing that the bull of par elam davar comes before the bull of avodas kochavim. If one is a chatos, one is an ola, of course one comes before. Of course the par elam davar comes first. Right? I mean, a question. So the answer is bechad mina miha lo ka'amrinon. He says this fact, right, that the chatos kadma. The point here is that they're both of the same type of animal. They're both bulls. So therefore, maybe what it would be saying is that if they're both bulls, then the chatos comes first, right? The chatos comes, and then the ola, right? No, I guess that I should have clarified. I should say the question better, right? The way the brisa states is that the ola of the avodah zarah comes before the chatos of the avodah zarah. And so, why are you telling me the chatos comes first? Why is the brisa telling me that the ola comes first? So then they point out in the brisa, if what you're saying is true that the ola comes first, then how do you explain the first part of the brisa where the chatos comes first? That's where we said. So now the answer to that is, if it's the same type of animal, one's a bull, another's a bull, fine. The chatos comes first. Okay, chatos of a bull comes before an ola of a bull. However, tikamrinon betray mine. We're talking about two different types of animals. One's a bull, one's a goat. And ashkechan ola dekad melachatos. In that circumstance, the ola of the bigger animal is going to come before the chatos. And so, therefore, it seems like it's not always true that the chatos comes before the chatos comes first. If maybe the animal has priority. So the answer is no. Amri bim ma'arava. In Eretz Yisrael, they said Mishmei de Rava Bar Mari in the name of Rava Bar Mari. Chatas avodos kochavim choser aleph. The sin offering of this idolatry, this goat, when it's written in the Torah, the aleph is missing in the word chatos. If you look there, I didn't look, right? But in Bamidbar Tesvav Chaf Dalid, v'haya im me'einei ha'ida nesas alishkaga, and if this avera was done from the community through negligence, v'asu kol ha'ida par ben bakar echad li'ola, u'si'izim echad lechatos. Then you're going to bring one bull as an ola and a si'izim, a goat, as a chatos. The word chatos there does not have an aleph in it, indicating that this chatos is a deficient chatos. It's not like other chatos. Normally, every chatos comes before an ola. The exception to the rule is this one. Why? Because the Torah specifically leaves the aleph out in order to indicate that.
Not a speech.
It's a correct. It's a pasuk thing. Exactly.
At the same time, this is one of the seer and Rishafim that's brought into
yes,
the Heichal.
and nevertheless, right? The ola comes first, right? So it's interesting. Another answer, right? That's answer number one. Answer number two. Ravina says kamishpat ksiv behu. So it says that you should do it kamishpat in the order, meaning in the order that the Torah lists them. Right? There's the extra word in the pasuk that says you should do them kamishpat in order according to the rules. Is going out of its way. The pasuk is going out of its way to tell me that we wrote ola first here. We mean ola first here, right? In other times, because we had that by the bird, it says ola first, but we don't mean that. Here, kamishpat, we mean it, right? The ola comes first. That's the reason why. Again, because the pasuk says so. Hashta de'osis lahachi. Now that you've come to the conclusion here, kamishpat, so then afilu tema parim dechag. Now I actually have a good reason also why maybe it's actually true that we could have been listing all of those animals before, and we said it was sukkos. We said no, it can't be sukkos. It's not. Maybe it is sukkos, right? Why is it? It says the bulls come before the rams come the sheep come before the goats, even though the goats are the chatos. Why? Because Nami over there, it also says Kemishpatam Ksiv Behu. It also says the word Kemishpatam by sukkos. So therefore, despite the fact that we have a rule that chatos comes first, maybe by Sukkot is the other exception, and chatos comes last because the pasuk says specifically so to do it in that way. Okay. Next question. Iboilu asked one question. Chatas ha'of ve'olas behema u'meiser. Let's say I've got a sin offering of a bird. I've got an ola of an animal and meiser, and I've got a tithed animal. I've got 3. Now this gets exciting, right? Ezemehud and kodem. Which one are you going to make first? You got a problem here. Tikdom chatos ha'of. What are you going to start with the chatos ha'of? You've got a problem. Ika meiser dekodim le. You can't do that because a chatos only comes before an ola, but you have a animal that's a meiser animal here, and animals come before birds. So therefore, the meiser animal, you can't start with the chatos bird because then you'll be skipping the meiser animal illegally. Lekdim meiser. So okay, start with the tithed animal, right? Can't do that. Ika olas behema dekodmale. You've got an animal that's an ola here. Ola animal comes before a meiser animal. So therefore, what are you going to do? You got to start with your ola animal. Take them olas behema. Start with your ola animal. Can't do that. Ika chatas ha'of. You've got a chatas ha'of there. You've got a chatas. Can't do an ola without doing the chatas first. The kadmala. That's the one that comes first. So you're stuck in a circle. No matter where you start, there's always one that comes before it. It's like rock, paper, scissors, right? So you can never really, everything beats the other one. You can't really start with anything. So,
007.
Huh?
Or 007.
I'm not sure. So, tirgamu. So hacha tirgamu min zevach odif. So here in Bavel, they decided, you know what? If you've got this is really no perfect solution. The korban of an animal is going to come first. So therefore, you're going to have to start with the meiser. You start with the tithed animal. That's going to have to come first, right? Because that's better than the bird. Also, that's going to be better than the bird. You can start with that one, and then once you've got that, so then you can move on. Right after that, you can go to the chatos next and move on from that. Okay. The Marava Amri in Eretz Yisrael, they said no. Ayla ba'olas behema bechatas ha'of ve'agbata mimeiser. Right. What you should do is you put the ola of the behema has to come first, has to come before the chatas of the oaf, and it comes before, it has to, the chatas of the oaf, 1 second. We said that the meiser has to come before the, how are you reading?
It's part of me now. I don't have to be thinking about it. I don't have to have it in my mind. It's safe.
The olas behema, you're going to have to start with the chatas ha'of is going to have to come first. Why? Because the chatas ha'of overrules the fact that the ola is an animal offering. Well, if it overrules the fact that it's an animal offering, then you have to be able to say meiser can't overrule it, which is also an animal offering. Clearly, chatos can overrule an animal offering. Hence, normally not true. If you've got just the two, if you've got normally just meiser and a chatas oaf, then you would do the meiser first. But in this circumstance, since the ola, the chatas oaf, has an elevated authority to overrule an animal, you can't bring the meiser first. That would make sense. Therefore, you're going to start with the chatas oaf first, and then you're going to move on from there. Okay. Okay, that's the answer to that. So we have 2 different approaches. Says the Mishnah, Kol chatol shebatorah kodmos le'ashamos. All of the sin offerings in the Torah, they come before asham offerings. Chutz me'asham mitzorah. The exception to that rule is the asham mitzorah mipnei shuba al ha-kosher, because that comes as a atonement. It's not really an atonement. It comes to make valid a person to be able to eat kodshim, right? Once he brings his korban. So therefore, he's got that asham has got a priority to it. The kol hashamos shebatorah ba'in b'nei shtayim uboin bekesef shkalim, chutz me asham nazir v'asham mitzora. There's also a rule. The Torah says that you have to bring an asham animal has to be 2 years old, and it has to be a expensive offering. It has to have shkalim. It has to be worth 2 shekel. Why? Because it says that one time by the asham in general, and therefore that's the rule by all ashamos except for the asham nazir. The asham nazir, it says specifically, it's not that it's in its first year, and therefore these rules don't apply. And the asham mitzora as well is excluded as well. So those two are exclusions to the rule of an asham. Shehein boin b'nei shnasan, they're supposed to be brought when they're within their first year. Vein boin b'kesef shkolim, and therefore also they don't have to be a full 2 shekel in value. Kishem shekodmin behakravason, kodmin b'achilason. So in all of these circumstances where we discussed that one is holier than the other, and they're going to be brought, not only are we talking about their offering of their blood and their burning of their fats, also when they are eaten, right? This is the priority list as well, right? So if you've got 2 korbanos, you're going to eat the one that's tadir first, right? You're going to bring the one that's more kodesh. You're going to eat the one that's more kodesh first. Shlomim shel emesh. Now, we've got a few other rules when it comes to eating. Let's say I've got the shlomim from yesterday, meaning that somebody brought this shlomim to the Beis HaMikdash yesterday, and they never made it. Ran out of time. So it comes today. So you're still around, and you're hanging out with this one today. U'shlomim shel yom. Somebody else brings today's shlomim. Okay? So shel emesh kodmin l'shel yom. Yesterday's is going to come first. Why? You already passed over it once, right? So therefore,
even though he couldn't make it, and the fact that he's too late to put on the.
So it's not. Well, there's not going to be a too late because the way that Rashi is explaining the Gemara is that it hasn't been slaughtered yet, right? It was brought yesterday, but nobody got to it. So therefore, otherwise, yes, you're right. Other Rishonim do look at it that way, and they say the issue is that if you slaughtered it yesterday, you didn't finish eating. You basically have yesterday's meat in front of you, and you've got today's meat in front of you. Eat yesterday's meat because you've only got till tonight to finish it, right? Rashi is not explaining the Gemara that way. Rashi says the animal was brought yesterday; they never got to it. Now it was pending. So now you've got yesterday's animal, and you've got today's new animal. You take care of yesterday's animal first.
The Kohanim went on strike or something.
They ran out of time. It was busy. The guy was standing on line the whole time. He never got to the front of the line. Okay.
Yeah.
So now, shlomim shel emesh. Let's say you've got yesterday's shlomim, chatos ve'osham shel yom, but you've got today's chatos and today's osham. Now, usually chatos and osham are going to come before the shlomim, but this shlomim has the extra additional element that it's yesterday's. So now what? Shlomim shel emesh kodmin. The shlomim for yesterday, right? Divrei Rabbi Meir. That's what Rabbi Meir says. You got to take care of yesterday's business. Yes, first. The Chachamim say chatos kodemes mipnei shu koche kochim. The chatos comes first. It's koche kochim. It outweighs the shlomim. It outweighs the shlomim, even though it's from yesterday. The kulon hakohanim rishonim lishanos b'achilason. The kohanim are always, whenever they're eating their korbanos, as we mentioned, they can make it any way they like. Lachlon tzluyin, they could roast it. Ushlukin, they could cook it. Which is, I guess,
Or eat it raw.
parboiled. You can't really eat it raw. That's not really consuming it, right? Muvu shalin, it can be cooked. Lates l'sochan tavli chulin, you could put spices, right? Cook it in some spices. V'tavli truma, and you could also put spices of truma, as we learned. That was unique because even though we were limiting its consumption, that was acceptable to do. Divrei Rabbi Shimon, that's Rabbi Shimon says. Rabbi Meir says, Lo yite l'tochan tavli truma. You can't put truma spices on, shelo yavia truma lidei psul, because you're limiting the consumption, the ability to consume. Because if you don't finish this korban in time, you're going to destroy it. So, therefore, you'll ruin the ability to eat this truma, which can last forever. Right? Iboilu. So we asked the following question. This is something I want to talk about, but we'll see if we have time. Iboilu. Tadir umekudash. If I've got something which is more common, but I've got something else which is more holy. So, ezemheim kodem. Which one are we going to bring first? Tadir kodem mishum de tadir. Odilma mekudash kadem de kaddish. That's a great line in the Gemara, right? Do you go with the tadir because after all it's more common, or do you go with the kodesh one because after all it's more kodesh? Which one is the bigger deal? Tashma, come and listen. Tamidin koded musafin. The korban tamid comes before musaf. That's why Shachris comes before Musaf. Right? Shachris comes before Musaf. V'yafagav Musafin Kadishi. Even though Musaf is the more holy of the offering. Why? Because it comes because of Shabbos. Musaf is not a chatos. The korban Musaf for Shabbos is Shana.
Shnei Kvasim.
B'nei Shana. Right? What does it say? Where's our sitter? Let's get our sitter.
Ola Shabbos.
Ola Shabbos Shabbatot. Right? That's what we're looking for. Right? It's an Ola. Right? It's korban Ola. So korban Musaf. So therefore, but it's more kodesh because it's for Shabbos. So you should say, I've got Shabbos and I've got weekday. Shabbos should be first. No, it's not true because Tadir comes first. Right? Good.
Just because it's on, your argument is because it happens to be on the day of Shabbos, which is holier?
No, Musaf happens to come because it's Shabbos. Therefore, it is a holier offering.
But that's not what the Gemara was saying of Mekudash. Is that what?
Yes.
Mekudash is
For any
level of the
holiness
Kodesh
of that
Kodashim
offering.
Or
Well, an offering can be holy for various reasons. Right? It could be holier because you apply the blood 4 times instead of once. It could be holier because it's.
If you're going to say that this is holy because the day you brought it on, that's the first time I'm hearing that.
It's not because of the day you brought it. It's that the day that is holy caused this korban to exist.
Okay.
Such a chashuv korban. It comes because of Shabbos. Right?
Okay.
And yes, in fact, Shnei Esrem Solas, Mincha B'La B'Shem V'Nisko, Ola Shabbos B'Shal Al Ola Satamid V'Nisko, besides the Korban Ola. And that is, right, that is our critical line, besides the Ola, because the Ola comes first, right? So, okay. The answer is no. Because if Shabbos is going to elevate the Korban Musaf, also, Ahani Litzmidin Lo Ahani, so Musaf and Ahani Litzmidin Lo Ahani, what are you going to say? The Shabbos helps the Musaf, but it doesn't help the Korban Tamid? The Korban Tamid of Shabbos is a special Tamid because it comes on Shabbos too.
It's not coming because of Shabbos. It would happen anyway.
So therefore, that's the Chiddush of the Gemara. It is a special, any Korban you're bringing on Shabbos is a Shabbos Korban.
What makes this one special? Because usually you're not allowed to bring korbanos on Shabbos except for this one. What's the reason?
What's the reason for what?
Usually on Shabbos you can't bring any korbanos, right?
You can. So that's the thing. You can always bring korbanos tzibur. Community offerings you can bring. Community offerings are docha Shabbos, right? Individual offerings are not. I can't bring my personal ola. I can't bring a personal shlamim on Shabbos. But the Beis Hamikdash is in full operation. So ordering.
Bring your personal chatas?
No. Yeah, no personal offerings, right? It's only for community offerings.
That's it.
Right? So, okay. So that, by the way, gives us a good explanation. Why is it that our Shachris for Shabbos doesn't look like our weekday Shachris, right? Because it's not. It's a special Shachris for Shabbos, right?
It's an expanded chakras.
It's a shortened Shachris, in fact.
Right? Or regular
Shachris for Shabbos is shorter. Ironically, right? Ironically, right? The reason why is because we're so busy on Shabbos, we got things to do, so we got to shorten our chakras up, shorter, right? But then we made it a big deal. We made it take a lot longer. So yeah, but we take a longer time. Okay, Toshma, come and listen. Musaf Shabbos Kodman LeMusaf Rosh Chodesh. The Musaf of Shabbos comes before Musaf of Rosh Chodesh. So that's interesting. Which one would you say is more Kodesh? You would have thought Shabbos is more Kodesh, right? Yeah, because we always said, because why? Like for example, how many Aliyahs? We have 7 Aliyahs. Shabbos, the holiest day, right? Rashi says Musaf Rosh Chodesh Mekudashin. Rosh Chodesh is more Kodesh. Mishal Shabbos Deikri Moed, because Rosh Chodesh is called a Moed. Which would have said Shabbos is more holy than a Moed too, right? Very interesting.
Is Rosh Chodesh more of a mode for the ladies, for the wives and stuff?
It is indeed, right? Yes. So yeah, but nevertheless, it's a Moed. It is more Kodesh than Shabbos, according to this Gemara.
That's why we have Kriya, Halal, Musaf.
It's an interesting Gemara, right?
Yeah.
That's because we have because that's what we have halal.
Because we have Hallel, yep. So now, Shabbos is going to come first because it's Tadir, and then Rosh Chodesh because it's Kodesh. So Tadir comes before Kodesh. Atu Rosh Chodesh Musafim Didei Ahani, Musafim Shabbos Lo Ahani. What are you talking about? If it's Rosh Chodesh Shabbos, then it's Rosh Chodesh dash Shabbos. It's combined together. Therefore, the Shabbos Musaf is elevated because it's Rosh Chodesh. Right? So therefore we have a special Musaf, right? When we have our Musaf on Shabbos, our Musaf on Shabbos is also changed because it's a Rosh Chodesh Shabbos one. Interesting halacha. So I'm not going to do it. I wasn't going to talk all of the things that are very interesting. Practical halacha. Okay? Practical halacha. If you forget Yalav v'Yavo while you're in benching on Rosh Chodesh, you do not repeat benching. Because there's no obligation to eat bread, there's no obligation to eat a meal on Rosh Chodesh. On Shabbos, if you miss Ritzei, right, then you have to repeat benching because you have an obligation to eat meals on Shabbos. What happens if it's Shabbos Rosh Chodesh and you forget Yal V'Yavo? Now that it is a Shabbos, the opinions hold. Now I'm not sure exactly whether we go leniently in the end because it's a machlokas, but there is a tzad to say you have to repeat benching if you forget Yalav v'Yavo if it's Shabbos Rosh Chodesh, because now it's a Shabbos Rosh Chodesh. You have an obligation to eat this meal that is Yalav v'Yavo. So therefore, when you have Shabbos and Rosh Chodesh, we don't look at it as it happens to be a Shabbos that is also Rosh Chodesh. The nature of the day becomes both things, Shabbos and Rosh Chodesh, and therefore it doesn't answer our question.
You repeat the Shemona Esrei after. I thought you repeat the Shemona Esrei after.
Yes, if you forget.
After you make your after you say the
We're talking about benching, not Shemona Esrei, right? Shemona Esrei you have to repeat if you forget, except for Marav, which is a different story. We get to Maseches Rosh Hashanah, we'll discuss, right? By the way, practical halacha to be worrying about this Tadir and Mekudash is. Which do you put on first, talis or tefillin?
Talis.
Right? Why? Tadir and tefillin is? So, okay, keep that in mind. Okay, so, Tashma, come and listen. Right? Come and listen. Musfei Rosh Chodesh, the Musaf of Rosh Chodesh, Kodmin lemusfei Rosh Hashanah. The Musaf of Rosh Chodesh comes before the Musaf of Rosh Hashanah, despite the fact that Rosh Hashanah should be more holy, because Rosh Chodesh comes more often. Tadir beats Kodesh. Afagav the Rosh Hashanah Kodsha. 1 second. That doesn't help us again. Also, Ati Rosh Hashanah l'musvei didei ahani l'musvei Rosh Chodesh lo ahani. It's the same answer, right? Rosh Chodesh of Rosh Hashanah is a special Rosh Chodesh. It's not a regular Rosh Chodesh. Tashma, come and listen. Davar acher, another explanation, right? We have a machlokas between Beis Shammai and Beis Hillel, or is it just Hillel and Shammai? Which one comes first? The Kiddush on wine, the bracha on wine, or the bracha on Shabbos in Kiddush? So we say wine first. That's how Hillel holds, and that Beis Hillel, it's Beis Hillel. So that's how Beis Hillel holds, and Beis Shammai says that it's the Yom first. Why? As the Gemara over there in Maseches Brachos Maseches Shabbos discusses. Wine causes Kiddush to be said. If you don't have your wine, you can't make Kiddush, right? And Shammai says, no, Shabbos causes the wine. If you didn't have Shabbos, you wouldn't be drinking this cup of wine. Davar acher, another explanation for their machlokas. Birkas hayayin tadira, the bracha on wine is more common. Birkas hayom eina tadira, Shabbos is less common. You drink a glass of wine every day, right? It used to be healthy for you, now it's not, but it used to be healthy for you, right? V'tadir shv'sheino tadir kodem. The one that's more common comes first. Therefore, the bracha on the wine comes first. So, afagav de birkas hayom kedesha, even though Shabbos is more kodesh. Again, doesn't help us. Atu Shabbos lebirkas hayom hanani lebirkas hayayin lo ahani. 1 second, you're telling me that the bracha on Shabbos, the wine is not elevated because of the bracha of Shabbos? The bracha on wine changes from a bracha on wine to a bracha of Shabbos wine. Now that has actually practical ramifications. When I make a bracha, if you want to eat the chocolate, can I make a shahakol? You say amen and eat the chocolate, and I don't eat chocolates. When it comes to birchas hanenin, I have to make my own bracha, right? Now you can say amen and be yotze and eat chocolate also, be yotze in my bracha, but I have to eat my right. Shabbos Kiddush, If I make kiddush, you can drink the wine. I don't have to drink. Why? Because this is not merely a birchas hanenin anymore. The wine has now changed to be kiddush. Other practical ramifications, if you've ever noticed in Sheva brachos, right, or by a chuppah, the first guy gets called up. He makes a berei pri hagafen. Who drinks the wine? The chassan and kala. The chassan and kala. The guy who makes a berei pri hagafen doesn't drink the wine. Why not? Because once the wine is now combined with the mitzvah of the bracha of the chuppah, it's now not just a bracha on wine anymore. It's now a birchas mitzvah, and one person can make the bracha and another person can drink. There are those that are machmir to spill a little bit of wine on their finger and drink anyway. There are some that are machmir that way too. But why? Because these are interesting phenomena for halacha, but each one of these is a good shear, right?
Yeah.
Right. So therefore, these things have good. Who would have known that we would have had practical halachas in the middle of Zevachim, right? But it's very practical, right?
Wow.
Toshma, come and listen. Rabbi Yochanan. Rabbi Yochanan says, halacha. The halacha is mispal adam shel mincha v'yachar kach shel musafin. The halacha is you get to the afternoon. It's Shabbos. You haven't daven musaf yet. Daven mincha first, then daven musaf. Is that what we did here on Simchas Torah? We got to the afternoon? No, we daven musaf first, right? Why? The answer is we have a low plug. We have a rule. People are going to get confused. Therefore, in shul, we daven musaf first anyway. However, if your wife is at home and she hasn't davened and she hasn't davened musaf yet, she got up, daven shachar, just got interrupted by the kids, and now it's the afternoon and she has to daven mincha or musaf, she should daven mincha first, then musaf, as is the halacha. Why? Because mincha is tadir and musaf is kodesh. Atu Shabbos l'tfilas musafin ahani l'tfilas mincha lo ahani doesn't help us because the tadir is also elevated in kedusha, so it doesn't help. They're all the same answer, right? Same thing over and over. Tashma, come and listen. Shlamim shel emesh. Now we get to our point, right? But now this is why we start bringing this right now, right? You've got the shlamim that was brought to the Beis Hamikdash yesterday. Chatas ve'osham shel yom, and you have the chatas and osham that's today. Shlamim shel emesh kodmin. So shlamim from yesterday has got to come first. Ha'idi ve'idi diyom, which would mean to imply that what? If the shlamim came today, and you had a shlamim that came in the Beis Hamikdash today, and a chatas and osham of today, chatas ve'osham kodmi, the chatas and osham would be first. Well, why? V'yafagav the shlamim tadiri. The shlamim comes more often because people bring donations of shlamim all the time, right? More shlamim, Baruch Hashem, more shlamim than chatos, right? Amar Rava says, Matzui kamart, tadir kamei boilan. There's a big difference between tadir and matzui. Matzui means it happens to be that it occurs more often. Tadir means the obligation occurs more often. The obligation to daven shachris occurs more often than the obligation to daven musaf. That's just true. However, the fact that people more often donate shlamim more often than they have a chatos just happens to be situation. You could have a year where nobody decides to bring any shlamims. Doesn't have to. You don't have to bring them, and it could be in that year you'll have more chatos. It just happens to occur that way. It's not exactly. It's not a true tadir. It just happens to be that the reality shows it, but it's not the same concept as tadir, is what Rava argues. So matzui lo kami boilan. We weren't asking about matzui. Of course, matzui is irrelevant. Chatos and Asham beat matzui. Amar le Rav Huna bar Yehuda le Rava. Rav Huna bar Yehuda says to Rava, we're not having any of that. Matzui and tadir are not different. Atu matzui lav tadir. What, you think the matzui, whenever something occurs more often, that's called tadir. Even if it's not obligatory, the fact that it just happens to occur is relevant. Vehatanya, we learn in a brisa. Otzias ha-pesach she'eno tadir, velo otzias hamila shehi tadira. In the psukim that talk about bringing a korban chatos, there are two mitzvahs. Normally, a chatos is brought when you are going. If you violated the prohibition on purpose, you'd get kares. You violate it negligently, you bring a korban chatos. There are two positive commandments that if you violate them, you get kares. One is Pesach. If you don't bring korban Pesach, you get kares. If you don't do a bris milah, you get kares. You might think that if you don't bring your korban pesach b'shogeg, or you don't do a bris milah b'shogeg, you have to bring a korban chatos. Therefore, the pasuk says, right? But it says the pasuk says asher lo ta'asena, right? You have to bring a korban chatos when you do something you should not do. Right? When you should not do it. So that means that it's going to exclude the Pesach and Milah because they're positive commandments. You never bring a Korban Chatos on not doing a positive commandments. Now, which of the two am I going to exclude? Right? So I'm going to exclude the Pesach, if I have a pasuk to exclude one of the two. I'm going to exclude Pesach. Why? Because it's not Tadir, it's not common. I'm not going to exclude Milah because Milah is Tadir. Now, if that is correct, therefore the pasuk has to come along and say Asher lo tasena, meaning that this rule is universal. It's never done on a positive commandment, right? I would have looked at the pasuk and said there's going to be a circumstance where I'm going to exclude bringing korban chatos. It would have only been one of these two, not both of them. Therefore, the pasuk tells me both of them. Okay, now the point though is, of the two, one is considered tadir than the other. Milah is tadir. Bris milah is more tadir than korban pesach. Why? Korban pesach occurs one day of the year. Milah can occur every day, all the time. Yeah, but that's not really a true tadir. That's more a matzui, isn't it? You don't have to have. If you have a circumstance, you're in yeshiva, there are no babies born, right? You have right. Does it, right? So therefore, right? So what is tadir? My tadira.
But it still calls it tadira. That's the point.
So therefore, it still calls it tadira.
So they're the same.
So therefore, that's what his point is. Rafuna's point is tadir and matzoi are the same thing. However, not true. Because we're going to say my tadira. What do we mean when we call bris milah tadira? We're not saying it's tadir in the sense that it occurs more often. It's tadira bemitzvos. It's tadir in general for Kahal Yisrael, exactly, right? In other words, it only occurs one time to a person, right? But also my korban pesach occurs once a year, but bris milah could occur once in my lifetime, right? So that's a good point too, right? So we're clearly looking at it as an annual thing, as an annual occurrence, right? Bris milah, I've attended more bris milahs. That's the anglicized. Sorry, I'm going to use my English prose. My Brite Milah, right? I attended more of those this year than I have attended Pesachs, right?
Right. Yes.
That's right. That just happens to be the fact.
Haven't we all?
Right? So therefore, okay, so now, my tadira, the answer is no. Tadira is not because it occurs more often, it's because bris milah is tadir in mitzvah. Says Rashi, the word bris is written 13 times by bris milah. Therefore, it is a very unique, very special mitzvah. That's what it means by tadir here. It's not tadir in the normal, traditional sense of tadir. It is tadir in that it is a very special mitzvah. I believe it's the Sfas Emes who says that not only that, but it's tadir in the sense that it is a mitzvah that occurs on you constantly. Once you have a bris milah, you are somebody who has a bris milah. It is a constant mitzvah upon you, and therefore that's what it means. It's tadir.
How do you constant mitzvahs? You only get it one time.
You don't get it one time. That's the point. As long, yes, you get it once, but you have it always. It's like how long when you're wearing tefillin. Are you wearing tefillin? You only get the mitzvah when you first put it on, or the whole time you're wearing it? Right? So therefore, the whole time you're wearing it, therefore, that's what it means. It's a mitzvah tadira. It is a mitzvah that is on and on and on and on, everlasting. Right? At the beginning, right.
You play too hard. You play too drunk on the wine as well.
So therefore, okay. So now, again, therefore, bris milah is not a great example to bring. So therefore, we're going to have to say maybe that Rava might be correct, that there's a difference between matzoi and tadir. Or else if you want, milah legabe pesach ki tadir damya. That milah compared to pesach is way more common, right? That's very different, right? It's way more, it's not just matzoi a little bit, it's like very much so. Pesach is once. Bris milah occurs dozens of times, all the time. So that's very different. So normally you're right, by comparing a shlomim to a chatos, to say shlomim is more matzoi is more tadir than a chatos, that I can say happenstance, right? But there must be thousands of chatos and 2,000 shlomims. When it comes to comparing bris milah to Pesach, there's way more bris milahs than Pesachs. Okay. Interestingly, right, that this issue, right, doesn't come out as very resolved in the Gemara. So therefore, when the Aruch HaShulchan and others, when they start to bring the halacha of why we put on tavos before tefillin, it mentions not only the tadir and mekudash, but all gives another explanation as well, right? That that requires us to place the tefillin ahead. In that, what is it? What does he say? I can't remember it. What does he say? He gives an additional answer. That he says that it's an os. Also, he basically puts on that there's another additional. Once these two things are tied, I've got tadir, I've got mekudash. I need an additional reason also. So it's not so simple that talis comes first simply because it's more common than tefillin, because tefillin is mekudash.
But also, tefillin really should be worn on Shabbos, right? It should be worn every day. Are we not just not wearing it every day for other reasons?
Well, because it's an os. Because Shabbos is already an os, and we look at it as an exemption. That it would be inappropriate to wear it because Shabbos is called an os. I'm not sure if that's not a doraisa. I don't know if it's Durabban Sheval Tasin. It might be a doraisa.
Do some people have minhag to wear tefillin on Chol Hamoed?
Yes.
Sure. Yeah.
Us non-Hasidim.
Even Sfardim do it, I think. So I know some Sfardim who wear tefillin by mincha, I meant to say.
Yeah, by mincha. That's by fast days. Fast days. Sfardim wear by.
So are we still saying this thing of Shabbos and Rosh Chodesh? Rosh Chodesh really is
merged. That is accurate. That we said.
Yeah.
That is our conclusion.
But, so which one is more Mekudash?
Oh, so that's interesting, right? Rashi seems to say that the Korban Musaf of Rosh. I'm not sure that Shabbos is less. Wouldn't say that Rosh Chodesh is more Kodesh than Shabbos, but Rashi seems to say that the Korban Musaf of Rosh Chodesh is more Kodesh than the one of Shabbos, because Rosh Chodesh is called a Moed.
I mean, if the Korban Musaf, is it the Korban Musaf of Rosh Chodesh that is on Shabbos?
Now that's correct. In the end conclusion, the Rosh Chodesh Shabbos Musaf, which is the Shabbos side of it, is also has that called Moed too. So it's not.
But you don't know which one's more Kodesh, Rosh Chodesh by itself Musaf or Shabbos Musaf. But there's no.
It makes no. It doesn't matter exactly. Okay, Iboy Lahu. So we asked the following question. Okay, good.
On Shabbos Rosh Chodesh, you say Ritzei first.
Sorry.
You say Ritzei before Yalav Yavo.
Yes.
It's more tadir.
You say Ritzei before Yalav Yavo because you would say Ritzei is more tadir.
Right. Yeah. Even though, or it's nothing to do with the kedusha of it, or the.
Well, that's the issue, right? It sounds, it would be tricky to say that it's because of kedusha. I would have said because it's kedusha, because Shabbos is more kodesh, but clearly it's a little bit more complicated than that. Iboy Lahu. We asked one question. Tadir v'sheino tadir. You've got well, you know what? It's 9:30. Maybe we'll stop here. We'll stop before we get it. Before we're going to, we won't run down to the Mishnah because we'll confuse ourselves. So we'll stop here at Tzadi Aleph
Oh yeah.
and continue on.
Fascinating.